I would now like to invite Trustee Emeritus Michael Caruso, class of 1967, to the podium to introduce our 2016 commencement speaker. Mike.
Thank you. It is a distinct honor and privilege to introduce my dear friend, Joe Perrella. And I'm going to give you the abridged version, because if I had to talk about Joe in his entirety, we'd be here until about 3, 4 o'clock. He is a legend in investment banking, one of Wall Street's most respected voices for decades, and to think he started it all right here on South Mountain. Joe is a proud member of the class of '64. I was a freshman during Joe's senior year. As a student, he was a member of the Accounting Society, the class cabinet, and Phi Kappa Theta fraternity. After graduating, Joe became a crew chief on F-105 fighter bombers in the Air Force and New Jersey National Guard. He also became a CPA in the state of New York, working at Haskins & Sells, now known as Deloitte Touche. Then Joe went back to school, earning his MBA from Harvard. His investment banking career spans more than 40 years and includes strategic assignments for leading companies in virtually every industry and region of the world. Joe began at the First Boston Corporation, where he founded their mergers and acquisitions group, then co-founded Wasserstein Perella and Company in 1988. He signed on as a managing director and member of the management committee at Morgan Stanley in 1993. He was worldwide head of Morgan Stanley's investment banking division, then chairman of the Institutional Securities and Investment Banking Group, and in 2006, he formed Perella Weinberg Partners, where he is currently chairman. Now that's something, but as outstanding as Joe's contributions to the world of finance and investment banking have been, we at Lehigh know there is so much more to the man. His generous and unwavering support of this university is evidenced through so many initiatives, including the Financial Services Lab in the College of Business and Economics that was named in his honor, and the endowment of the Perella Department of Finance. With his wife, Amy, he established the CBE's 4 Joseph R. and Amy M. Perella chairs. And he was also awarded an honorary doctorate at this university in 2006. The Perellas also established an endowed scholarship fund for Lehigh students from Newark, New Jersey area where Joe grew up, and supported the construction of the Roush Business Center, in which the largest auditorium is named in both the honor of Joe and Amy. The Perellas are a member of the Asa Packer Society, the Tower Society, and Leadership Plaza. And let me add that I personally won't forget his leadership gift to the Caruso Wrestling Complex. Joe is a longtime university trustee, was an honorary co-chair of the successful Shine Forever campaign, and is an avid follower of Lehigh Wrestling. In 2004, he received the Ellen Life Award from the Lehigh, New York City Alumni Club. This award recognizes alumni for outstanding achievements in business and professional life and for continued devotion and loyal service to the university. Ironically, although we were both born in Newark, New Jersey in the 1940s, I didn't meet Joe until after our college days. We discovered later on that we had both lived on North 11th Street, 1 block apart. Our friendship has grown over many decades, proliferated by our mutual passion for wrestling. Not only is it an honor to introduce Joe, but it's a privilege to publicly tell him and the Lehigh community what a mentor and a role model he has been to me throughout the years. And I am certain that countless others can also make that claim. I could go on for a long time, but better stop now. Please join me in welcoming to the podium a great son of Lehigh, my dear friend Joe Perella.
This reminds me of the song Blinded by the Light. Thank you. Thank you very much, Mike. President Simon, members of the faculty, fellow trustees, parents, friends, and family, and graduates of 2016. Let me digress for a second, Belinda, and tell you your comments reminded me of something I read years ago by Thomas Aquinas. Diversity is the perfection of the universe. That wasn't in my speech, but you inspired me to say so. So thank you. And thank you for the honor and privilege of addressing you today. So I have a question for you guys out there. So just raise your hands. You don't have to stand up. How many of you are graduating from the College of Engineering? Okay, you're all over there, back there. How many of you are graduating from the College of Business and Economics? Oh, look at all of them. And how many of you are graduating from the College of Arts and Science? Wow. Okay, now there's a special group. I don't know how many of you are out there. How many besides the commencement speaker have been in all three undergraduate colleges? Oh my God. Oh, there's one back there. Universe of 2, 3, okay. If you don't get this now, you will understand why I asked in a few minutes. Experimentation, let's call it, in all three colleges is one of the things that helped get me here today. My parents also played a big part in my being here today. So you might call my comments from Newark to now. It all started in our home in Newark, where I grew up pretty much in a communal environment my first 10 years. A couple of things stand out. My education began at home at the family table. My mom fed us her love and her food for our tummies, and my dad challenged and fed our brains. They had an obsession and the goal that override all other considerations, the education of their children. This stress on education began with my paternal grandfather, Joe, and it's a story my father repeated to us over and over again throughout our childhood. My grandfather was a blacksmith in Italy, and he came to America to earn money for my father's education. Why was that? Well, because the schools in my father's village stopped at age 13. So my father had to move to a town with a high school and lived with a local family who my grandfather had to pay to take care of him. And from there, my father went to Naples to attend college and get his doctorate in economics. And only then did my father come to America. So all during this time, my grandfather worked in the United States to educate my father. My parents were the gold standard of deferred gratification. Anytime we wanted something, the answer was usually the same. Now, you know, we can't afford that. We're saving for your college. Growing up in New Jersey, I was like every other guy. I wanted a car by the time I was 17 years old. So Dad said, you want a car? You better figure out how to pay for one. I'm saving for your college. So every summer I went to work starting at age 13 at Baltusrol Golf Course in Springfield, where I caddied. And all year long, every Friday and Saturday and Sunday night, I worked for tips in a parking lot of a nightclub. And my father drove me back and forth to work each night. I attended public schools in Newark and Union, New Jersey. And let me tell you about my guidance counselor at Union High School. His name was Mr. Boyle. And my session didn't last that long. Joe, sit down. With your grades and your SATs, here's 3 schools you can get into. That was it. Any questions, he said. I said, no. Is that how it was for you? I doubt it. Now, one of the 3 was Lehigh. And reading up about Lehigh before visiting, I liked the fact that there were 3 colleges for undergraduate study. I remember visiting Lehigh with my father, and the minute I set foot on campus, I knew I was coming here. Maybe you think I had it all figured out. Well, I had no clue what I wanted to do, so 3 colleges kind of appealed to me. I entered Lehigh, September 59 in the class of 63, Mike. And Mike said, I graduated in the class of 64 in the College of Business. So let me explain. I entered into the engineering school during what was called the Sputnik era. Everyone was captivated by the Russian launch of a basketball-sized satellite, and the space race was on. It was similar to the advent of the internet in the 90s. 2/3 of the entering class of the class of 63 entered the engineering college. Now, I'm sure the faculty felt the need to separate the men from the boys, and they did. So after struggling through freshman year, I transferred to the College of Arts and Science. Again, with no clue as to what I wanted to do, and I might add, with very little motivation. I was completely unfocused, muddling through 2 years of Lehigh, even cutting classes when I was bored. And after 2 years of drifting, Lehigh suggests or tells me to stay home. And that was a wake-up call. I needed to reflect on what I was doing with my life. So I thought about my parents who had sacrificed so much. Am I giving them grief in return? Looking back, it was indeed the lowest point in my life, and as I see it, Lehigh did me a huge favor. I went home humiliated, but vowing not to make this failure permanent. I went to work that summer selling encyclopedias door to door, 5 nights a week, all over the Jersey suburbs. I found out what cold calling was like. In the fall of '61, I got a job in the accounting department of a beer company in Newark. I liked being in a business environment. There was lots to learn, there was lots to do, and people relied on me to get things done. Then early in 1962, my dad sat me down at the kitchen table for a heart-to-heart. Said, Joe, what do you want to do with your life? What have you learned from these experiences of the last few years? And I said, I learned how to apply myself. I want to pursue a career in business. I want to try and return to Lehigh in the College of Business and Economics, major in accounting. Dad gave me a second chance and said, okay. Then I wrote a letter to Lehigh describing my year and what I had learned and what my goals were, asking to return. And Lehigh gave me a second chance. So upon returning to Lehigh, I completed 5 semesters in 2 years. I came to realize when I returned to Lehigh that the busier I was, the better I did for myself and those who mattered to me. At the beginning of the 62-63 school year, my father, who was then 55, with 3 kids in college, lost his job. I wanted to help my family during this period while Dad looked for a new job. At this point, everyone in the Lehigh family came to the rescue. I got the dishwasher job at my fraternity house that paid for all my meals, and the fraternity let me have the laundry concession that covered all my dry cleaning and laundry. And finally, in another gesture I will never forget, one of my accounting professors, Frank Brady, hearing about my situation, offered me a job during the year-end tax season to help him in his private practice. All the care shown to me during this difficult period was amazing. So when Lehigh's then president, Greg Farrington, in 2003, asked me to endow 4 chairs in the College of Business and Economics, my reaction was instantaneous. I said yes, and now you know why. Coming back to the question I asked earlier, namely, how many of you were in all 3 colleges? You'll recall Caruso said I was class of 64, but I entered class of 63. So I was in all 3 colleges with a year off in between. I did well academically in the College of Business Economics. I received several offers from CPA firms to work in New York City. I took the job at Haskins & Sells, as Mike said, and over a period of years, I received great exposure to the financial service industry, hospital industry, and industrial companies. I passed the CPA exam in 1967. I was learning a lot, but I was realizing I didn't want accounting for a career, but again, I wasn't sure what to do next. And there was one other thing that all men had to consider during this time. For all of us growing up in that era, military service was compulsory for anyone 18 and over. So when you were a junior in college, you started to think, how am I going to serve? So I decided I would join the New Jersey Air National Guard via the 108th Tactical Fighter Group at McGuire Air Force Base. And after graduation, I did so in 1964. Little did I know how that decision was going to affect my life going forward. So the 108th Tactical Fighter Group was a high-performance unit of 20 fighter planes supported by 1,000 personnel. And over the years, I got to know many of these people. Two of them became great buddies of mine, and neither of them knew the other. One worked on the flight line with me, and the other worked in the hangar. I came to realize, though, that these two guys had one thing in common. They both had gone to Harvard Business School. I hadn't known anyone who'd gone to Harvard Business School from Newark. And I thought only geniuses like Robert McNamara, who was president of Ford Motor Company, Secretary of Defense, head of the World Bank, guys like that went to Harvard Business School. I said to myself, God is sending me a message. So I got in my car and drove to Boston. And I went to the administration office, and I said, hi, I'd like to learn about this place. They gave me a brochure, and I said, well, while you're here, you want to sit in on a class? I said, yeah. So I went to the class, sat down, and my head exploded. These students were debating the cases, and I just said, I got to do this. I ran back to the admissions office. I said, how do I apply? I applied, and a year later, I got in. So after my honorable discharge from the United States Air Force, I left public accounting in New York for Boston and the Harvard Business School in September of 1970. Now at Harvard, I was 29 years old. I knew I wanted the experience, but I didn't know where it would lead. I committed myself to work hard every day, and I received first-year honors. So here I was, 10 years after being tossed out at Lehigh, awarded first-year honors at Harvard. I think you get the message, and I hope you do. On the strength of my academic performance at Harvard and financial need, I was granted a Sidney Weinberg Goldman Sachs Fellowship that paid my second-year tuition. And Goldman Sachs funds 12 of those every year. Years later, I would be introduced by a mutual friend to Peter Weinberg, the grandson of Sidney Weinberg, and I would form a firm that bears both our families' names today. So it was during career days at Harvard when companies came in to talk with students about their business, and in conversations with fellow students after class, that I began looking more closely at investment banking. And I saw it as a way to employ all I had learned as a CPA at Haskins & Sells. My job search wasn't easy. I was 31, and most firms were looking for 25-year-olds, so I have another story for you. Here's my interview, and I hope you never have one like this, with one firm that shall remain unnamed. But you walk into the interview cubicle, and he's got a pile of manila folders there. Joe, sit down. He opens it up, he looks at me, looks down, looks up, looks at Joe, how old are you? I said, I'm 31. He goes, closes the folder, he goes, I'm sorry, you're too old for us. What do we talk about the next 20 minutes? That was my interview with one of the Wall Street firms. They're no longer in existence, by the way. I was getting depressed by all of these ding letters I was receiving and rejection. My classmate, Steve Schwartzman, the founder of Blackstone, became my biggest cheerleader. Whenever I was down in the dumps with my latest rejection letter, Steve would pump me up. And one day, my professor of investment banking, Sam Hayes, who knew of my job search, said to me, Joe, there's a new man in charge of First Boston. Send him a letter with your resume. I did. And the same resume that one firm closed the book on opened new opportunities for me at First Boston. So I began at First Boston in August of '72. The training program lasted 6 months. So how did I get into the M&A business? Well, the head of the department noticed that all these people used to hover around my desk from time to time during the training program, asking me questions about merger accounting. So he said to me after the training program, what do you think about specializing in M&A for us? And I said, sure. And he was stunned. He goes, well, don't you want to think about it? I said, Greg, you've been in the business 24 years. I've been in it 24 weeks. I'll do it. And I've been doing it for 44 years. Fair to say that the firm at the time thought so little of this fledgling sector of finance that they gave it to a person less than a year out of school. So for the last 44 years, I've worked as an M&A specialist in 4 different firms, First Boston and Morgan Stanley, and 2 that I started, Rothstein Perella and Perella Weinberg Partners. So in traveling from Newark to now, I come away with a few thoughts that I'd like to share with you. First of all, know thyself. That's not a new concept. Work on increasing your self-awareness. One of our biggest shortcomings. Some people get up every day, look in the mirror, and they see George Clooney. If you don't have self-awareness, you can't possibly manage disappointment. And your career development will be compromised. Ben Franklin also said, what are the 3 hardest things in the world? Steel, diamonds, and knowing yourself. Second thing I'd like to share with you. No one has all the answers. You can't do it alone. Learn from young and old alike. It was here at Lehigh I learned about a concept called hybrid vigor from the ecology professor Francis Tremblay. And I've tried to apply this concept in my business life in choosing the people I wanted around me. I tried not to look for myself in others. So you need to talk and listen to people. Develop human relationships. They will help and enrich you in ways you can't imagine. Third, good judgment comes from experience, and experience comes from bad judgment. I don't have to explain that to you. Know how to manage setbacks and disappointments. Don't make them permanent, and don't be complacent. Strive for excellence each day in all you do. One of my favorite people lives right up the road from here, if I'm pointing to Nazareth. Maybe the greatest race car driver ever to come out of, well, he's born in Italy, but raised here in the United States, Mario Andretti. And he had a quote I heard him use once years ago, and I never forgot it. If you're on the track and you think you've got everything under control, you're not going fast enough. So expect the unexpected. If my story tells you anything, it should tell you nothing goes as planned. I call that the serendipity of life. Fourth, I would urge you to always tell the truth. Own up to your own mistakes. Mark Twain said, always tell the truth. That way you don't have to remember anything. So owning up to your mistakes means having people learn them from you, not from others. And importantly, don't be afraid to admit when you don't know something. The final point as you go forward from here is a concept I wanted to share with you that I got exposed to at HBS. And it's called exit, voice, and loyalty. Those are your 3 choices wherever you go from here. And what do I mean by that? Well, you go to work and you're a loyal employee. You see a problem, you go to your boss, hey, boss, problem. Here's how, oh, by the way, when you point out problems, have a couple of solutions, because bosses usually have a line of people around the block with problems. Here's a solution. Now, the boss can say, give you a pat on the back, say, Joe, great idea, we're gonna fix that. And you happily go back to work. Or he could say, do me a favor, shut up and go back to work. At that point, you have 2 choices. Go back to work, remain loyal, or exit. Those are your only 3 choices, exit, voice, and loyalty. And I'd like to quote a renowned professor from Harvard Business School during my era there, Abraham Zalesnik in behavioral sciences. There will come a time when you will be tested. You will be asking yourself, what is your self-esteem worth? And would you give it up and be subordinate to someone who you don't respect or is doing the wrong thing? You will face that choice someday. Now, you've heard a lot about me, and I want to issue a challenge to the graduating class of 2016. When you get up tomorrow morning, how are you going to make it a better world? It's a simple question, but it's an important one. Now, you don't have to have Bill Gates' money to do that. You don't have to have the brilliance of a scientist like Jonas Salk. Your parents and grandparents will tell you that polio was a nightmare that we all grew up under the specter of, worrying about dying or getting paralyzed. And Salk developed the vaccine. And he did something very fundamental. He never patented it. So millions of people, by him foregoing all that money, all over the world could be spared the effects of this deadly disease and obtain the vaccine. Once asked why he did that, he said, "You can't patent the sun." So you need the courage of your convictions to want to make a difference. If you're not indifferent, things can be different. You have to place a value on small gestures, to smile, to open a door. Making the world better is as much about small gestures that no one sees. As Maya Angelou said, and I'm glad you didn't use this quote. I froze for a minute. I've learned people will forget what you said. People will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel. So when you wake up tomorrow and you're figuring out what you're going to do to make it a better world, I want you to remember how Lehigh made you feel, because the way this place and the people here made me feel totally changed my life and turned me into the person I am today. And for that, I will be forever grateful. Thank you very, very much.